Okay. Okay.
How long have you been doing the podcast? Okay. Okay. Did you hear me? Okay. How long have you been doing the podcast? Okay, because I would see sometimes on Facebook you posted some things kind of like past, yeah. You said everything what? Yeah, I can still hear you. Oh, okay. You said where am I what? Okay. Yeah, I like that. I'm Afro-Indian. I like that. I'm glad you reached out to me to do this because I really have always wanted to be a part of platforms that help build the African diaspora together. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right, 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 right. So I got you. I hear you. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I should have called you a little bit earlier, but I had to do some errands and throughout the day and stuff like that. So I apologize. Oh, Facebook page. Okay. Was it Afro Aliens? Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. I just turned it down. So Facebook. That's what I just did on my phone. It's now or never. It's do or die. Uh-huh.
All right, welcome. So yeah, those of you who are just tuned in, of course, some of you have been on there for a little bit. this is our first episode, and this is Afro Alien Media, Afro Alien TV, and on this show we are gonna be like sharing all our African experiences from both sides of the aisle. If you're African American, or you are African, whatever you are, whoever you identify, like whatever you identify with, this is your show, and this is your TV. This is your media platform where we are going to come in here. We're going to have a number of guests sometimes, and sometimes it's just going to be me and Scott, and we're going to be here sharing our experiences. And here is Scott. He's been all over the place. You recently returned from South Africa, correct?
Yes,
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I mean, what took you to South Africa?
Well,
You know,
basically
following up on a vision put in my heart back in 2017 to actually transition and move there.
So I this past November, I took my family to South Africa to visit. We were there for about a month. We had a wonderful time in the Johannesburg area. We absolutely loved it. It was my wife's first time going, and that was my fifth time being on the continent. My first time being in South Africa.
Oh yeah, okay, that's awesome. I mean, like, you had been to other parts of Africa, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And this time you went to South Africa, I think you were talking about really like moving there. Did you actually think about moving to South Africa, or what were you doing? Like, because I had messaged you and you were like, okay, I'm trying to find a house, and you were sending these clips and these videos of very, very wonderful homes and mansions and stuff, and I was like, okay, he's probably gone this time.
Yeah, I mean, basically we went there
pretty much to
check it out for ourselves. We definitely felt called to South Africa, and so we went there to not just vacation, but to really look at the country as far as moving there. So we did look at homes. We visited schools. We were there for about a month. So we stayed in like an Airbnb apartment in the area called Rosebank. So while we were there, we interacted with people that we knew, and even made some more connections with people who are South African. So normally when I'm going to Africa, I'm doing like preaching and teaching, but I wasn't doing that this time. I was more so just really getting to connect with people, find out what the process is in purchasing a home, get information about visas and how I can actually come there long term. So, and just taking in the environment, just getting a feel for what the roads are like, what the environment is like, that type of thing. And then also for my wife as well, just to see if this is still being confirmed in our spirit that this is where we're supposed to go.
Oh, that's so cool. So let's backtrack a little bit. Let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
So when was the first time you went to Africa, and what motivated you to go there in the first place?
Okay, well, in 2009, I went there my very first time to Uganda, and I went. I know earlier that year, before I went, I was at a missions conference, and there was an altar call given. I remember going to the front of the altar call, praying. And I saw this little vision of my pastor asking me to come with him to Africa. So I saw him the next couple of weeks in church, and I mentioned to him, I said, I believe I'm supposed to go to Africa to preach. And then he said, well, why don't you come with me? So I ended up going to Uganda. And there was a spiritual motivation. I ended up teaching in a pastor's conference. It was a 3-day conference in Luwero, but we were there for 2 weeks within the country. But also as a African American, as a Black American, I've always had a desire to go to the motherland, so it was also like a double blessing. Like, here I get a chance to go and preach to a pastor's conference, but really also I wanted to go just to take in the experience and just kind of, connect to my African roots, I guess you could say. So that was in 2009. So it was about almost 13 years ago now. And I had a phenomenal time. It was just really, it was really life transforming for me, just to go into an African country, to look around and see people on the billboards that are Black, just to see a majority Black country. It was fascinating to me,
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like,
yeah.
Like how you decide, like, did you know anybody there before you went? Did you actually?
No. Well, I went with my pastor, his wife, and there were some other people from our congregation at the time that went. So I didn't know anybody. He knew, he had connections with ministries over there. So, like, we were connected with a conference for leadership. I had the opportunity to teach at that conference, and then we visited up in the northern part of Uganda in a place called Gulu. There's a ministry there called Favor of God Ministry. So we visited that ministry as well. And then we had an opportunity to go to Murchison Falls, which is like a national park, like a safari. So we had an opportunity to do that. And then we stopped off in Jinja for a couple of days. And then we headed back through Kampala, and then we headed back to Talib. So we were there for about 12 days, like 12 days, I think, like 2 weeks.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I was looking at some of your pictures, and I don't know if I can pull up one here. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at that picture, and I'm like, okay, tell me about the food. Is that Uganda? Is that Kenya?
That's Uganda. And I went there like this is like because after 2009 I came back in 2017, 2020. So that's a friend of mine, like gentleman there, Mazungu, Brother Cornelius. Yeah, yeah, he's from Germany, and that's his wife and his kids, and then his nephews. So. The food was good. I mean, like at their house, they have a blend of both Uganda and German cuisine. So, I enjoyed the food the first time I went. I remember having some beef, the chapati, and the food is very it's organic too. So there's not a lot of processes in the food. This is Kenya.
Oh,
that's Kenya. This Kenya and Uganda border each other. So I've been to Kenya twice. I came in 2018 the first time, that I came again in 2020. And that's a pastor, a friend of mine, Brother Abraham. Some children from his congregation and other congregations in the area, because that church has a lot of ministries in the area. And an area called Malaba, which is right on the border.
So it's actually at the border of Uganda and Kenya. Correct?
Yes. And so I've had opportunities to minister in his congregation a couple of times. Wonderful man of God. And I've also been to Bugoma, Kenya, which is a little bit further in, but it's not too far from Uganda as well.
Yeah, I kind of remember that place. And where is this place? Where is this place?
That's called the Martyrs Shrine. That's in Kampala. That's what?
What's that? How am I asking about a place in Kampala? Where is that?
Yeah, it's called the Martyrs Shrine. I guess that was an area.
Mother Shrine?
Martyrs.
Oh, Uganda Martyrs.
Yeah, Uganda Martyrs.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, off of Nomagongo Road. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's a huge story about that.
Oh, yeah.
Story. Did you hear the story?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I looked because they have like monuments. statues of the events that took place, and then you can read them, and it tells about the history of it, some of the people that were martyred and stuff like that, their background. It was really fascinating, really interesting. Just good history. I love history, and I like to study African history as well. So it was really fascinating. It just gave me a deeper understanding about the country, I guess you could say.
So and on that first trip, that is a trip on which you actually like focused more on the ministry side of things.
In 2009, I was there only like 2 weeks. It was my first time going. So it was kind of like my introduction to Africa, I guess you could say, in 2009. And then when I came back in like 2020, I was there a little bit longer. I had more time, more free time to just kind of do things like the Uganda Martyr Shrine. Go to like maybe going with my friend, pick up his kids from school, go to the supermarkets, that type of thing. And also, a friend of mine from Germany, he took time to really like break things down to me about what he's learned about the culture, his experiences, both good and bad in Uganda. So that was good for me, because it's just good to know the ins and outs of a place. It's one thing to visit, it's another thing to go repeatedly many times and actually kind of settle in or do a long-term project. And that's when the challenges come. But it's good to know what to foresee in those challenges, and not in a negative way or nothing. Yeah.
How did you feel like when you stepped the first day you actually stepped on the African motherland? Like, I can imagine, because you were carrying all these feelings from very many generations of your family,
right?
And all the stories you've heard about their genealogy, where they come from, their ancestry, and then you're carrying all these, and you're like, okay, I'm not here by myself, and you're here with your family, and you're stepping on the ground, and you're like, I wonder if this is the place. I wonder if this is where they actually came from. How do you feel on your first day when you actually stepped out of the plane?
Man, it just felt like this connection. I can't really explain it. It was like, it was just this connection. Like, oh my, like this felt like home when I first came to Uganda. It was like, I don't know, the tropical weather, the feel of everything. It felt like it was an environment that was built to live in, if that makes any sense. Yeah, like I did feel that connection. Like, yeah, my heritage leads back to the continent. Even though my ancestry probably does not trace directly to Uganda, but it's just that my people are from this continent, And it was really very deep and touching. I have to say that, I was just in awe of it. I just wanted to like hug people. I wanted to just go to people and talk to them, and just get to I don't know. It was amazing, man. And I told my wife that. She said at first she didn't. When she came with me to South Africa, I said, it feels different when you go to Africa. It just is. She said, oh, that's just emotions. I said, okay. And then she told me, when she was in the airport, when we landed in Johannesburg, she was like, somebody said to her, welcome home. And she said, man, it just spoke to her like beyond her cognitive reasoning, someone into the depths of her soul, and she just immediately felt like she was home. So that's how I felt in Uganda, my first time. It was like Uganda is always going to be a special place to me because that was my introduction to Africa.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who are watching, I'm mixed. I'm from Uganda and I'm from Sudan, which is north of Uganda. Mm-hmm. My dad is Sudanese and my mom is Ugandan, and the airport where you actually landed is in Buganda, which is actually the biggest tribe. It's in Kampala, basically. Entebbe is in Buganda. Buganda is the kingdom. You have a king over there. So it's a big kingdom over there. And they have like they have the best culture you will find in Uganda. It has a lot of values. And I actually was I was looking down one of these pictures. Actually, let me just switch to that one. And this is a Muganda girl kneeling right before you. I don't know if she's not, then she's a girl from a different culture who has actually learned the culture of Baganda, which is kneeling before. It's not. Americans would kind of look at this in a different way, in a different light, and probably would not understand what this is. But this is how girls in Uganda are raised. They are kind of raised to have this kind of respect. It's a experience. So they like to kind of keep their distance, and when they come, they kind of humble themselves and go down to greet you, especially if you're a visitor. So how was this? Did you were you trying to tell her, don't mind, get up, don't kneel, stand up?
Well, by this time, this was probably
17.
So I was already used to the culture for the first time that I went in
2009.
So I already knew that there was a culture, as you stated, women bowing, sometimes children will bow to an elder. So it's just kind of like in Rome, you do as the Romans do. You have to allow people to function in their culture, because really you're in their home. You're a guest. And so I know that she's just doing that out of respect. And then I was praying with her too. We were going door to door, sharing the gospel with people in the community. And this is in the Kampala area, so she could very well be Uganda. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it's just a part of the culture. It's just a cultural thing, like in Japan, where people bow down to each other when they meet each other, so, yeah, it's just a part of the culture. And sometimes, sometimes it's like, okay, this is different, but I just allow people to do what they do. It makes them feel comfortable, because what they're doing, in essence, is welcoming you into their home, basically. And that's how I look at it, So, yeah.
So, are there any is there anything that blew your mind away? Was there any shocking, like when we come here, we experience what we call a cultural shock?
Culture shock.
Yeah. Was there anything like that you experienced? Very serious cultural shock.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the boda drivers, the bodas. Yeah, that just how they were driving,
Let me see if I can find a boda here.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Was there any other cultural shock or something?
I think those are some of the main culture shocks. Probably when we get to other episodes, we can talk about some others. But yeah, just like the bodas, that was a shock to me. I mean, everything about Uganda is a lot different than the States. Just everything, So I think another thing is, in a good way, is how hospitable people are. Amazing hospitality. I think the bowing, that can be somewhat of a shock, but just everything about the country itself is a lot different than America. In some ways, some things. I think sometimes we already have this. Yeah, there's Kampala right there, traffic. And I mean, the driving, man, is crazy, man. It's like, I say to myself, I don't know if I could ever learn how to drive in Uganda, because that traffic is just, you don't really have. I'll tell you, a shocking thing to me is that a lot of times you're on the street and you may not even know what the name of the street is, because you don't always see street signs, Right. So that type of thing can get you, but people are friendly. They'll help you get to where you need to go.
Yeah, I think actually what that guy is trying to show you is how risky it is to ride bodas.
Oh yeah, I remember one time cross, like, okay, people crossing the street. There was like a shopping plaza, and we got off the taxi, and we had to cross the street. And here's another thing that's a culture shock is that men hold hands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, men hold hands, and so I would see guys holding hands. The first time I saw that, it kind of shocked me, but I remember my pastor said, "No, that's just the custom here. That's just people being friendly."
Yeah.
So one time I had to cross the street, and you know how traffic can be crazy in Kampala. There's no really traffic lights in some places. We were heading into a shopping plaza, so my host, he grabbed my hand, and normally I didn't, I was still uncomfortable with that. But because he was helping me across the street, I didn't care. I was like,
across the street.
So that was just an interesting thing right there. But, so those are pretty much some of the shocks that I had.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the truth is that in Uganda, we hold hands. And honestly, when I came to America, I came like an innocent baby. This is how I feel like. I feel like, okay, when I came to this country, I felt like a baby, because I felt like the things that I cannot, like I used to do with a lot of innocence. I've so misunderstood this country. Like I could literally, like we could hang with our friends and our buddies, like jump in each other's, arms and play together and for fun and just like punch each other and play and we could share even a bed. In Uganda, like guys share beds all the time. Like, there's not enough room, so we all squeeze in, and some of the stuff you can do here,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you can't do it here. Like, maybe I know, because maybe here they're like, okay, you can afford to have your own bed. You don't need to share a bed and stuff like that. But also in the conscience, like what is in the people's minds when that happens is completely different from what is in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. So you actually, then you see guys holding hands. What did you first doubt in the first place? Were you like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I first saw it, and my host and pastor did tell us that that's a common thing, men hold hands as the homosexuality, and it just looked odd to me, But then, I mean, when I looked at them, they didn't look feminine enough. You just see a guy holding another guy's hand, and so it was just like, oh man, this is different, but it's, as you stated, it's like you're like a child when you come to a new place. It's almost like you have to learn all over again a new culture, or you have to learn to at least respect it and realize some of the guards that I may have in the United States don't necessarily apply to Uganda, So it's just like, you just almost have to readjust your thinking. Now I'm like, it's common to me. I've seen it enough times, but it's just like you have to readjust your thinking. And like you stated, how people share things in Uganda, I think Africa in general is more community based, whereas in America is more individualistic. So it's like, no, this is my space, this is my bed, so on and so forth. You might share a hotel room with your friends or something like that if you're on a trip, but you're definitely going to create your own space, and especially between guys and so forth. But it's just different in Uganda,
Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, look, the first couple of years when I came here were like the hardest years for me. I mean, I was married to this wonderful lady who brought me in this country, and things didn't kind of work out as we wanted to, and then I was forced to be on my own in a country where I don't have community, and here I am. I came from there. I mean, I came from here. Those of you who can see all that chaos. This is where I came from. Like, I came from all this place where there's people. You literally don't have to walk 5 feet before you find somebody to talk to. You know what I mean? So I'm here where, and you can see there, like the people who are driving those personal cars over there are working in that bank. That's a bank. Like those are rich people who are actually like executives or something. But every other person is walking, or riding a border, or in a taxi. So like there's that a lot of community. You don't even have to have family to feel like you belong to some kind of community. You can literally, you see how guys just go and stand by the borders and then just start striking a conversation the whole day. Like we just literally go to a border stage and just begin talking to random strangers the whole day. And everybody has time for that,
Yeah.
There's what we call African time. You know what I mean?
Right.
We had so much time, like, to talk about football or anything, whatever you wanted to talk about. Like, guys is up for it. So, but then I was in America where I was by myself and I was forced to kind of stick to myself, like a choice. Like you just have to stay by yourself. You have to stay in your room, stay in your car. Don't call nobody because nobody's gonna talk to you because people are working, people are busy. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
And then the time zone is so different. Like by the time you are awake, you want to call Africans. The Africans are thinking of sleeping. You know what I mean?
Right.
They cannot even afford to talk to you unless you send them some money because they have to get data on their phones. They have to have internet or something like that.
Right.
So it's kind of so hard,
Yes.
How did you actually like adjust? Because I can imagine like you come from a culture like that where you kind of stick to yourself and you maintain your space and maintain your safe distance, and then you're going to a culture where we bump into each other. I think people are literally bumping into you and you cutting you out every time.
Well, it's like, I mean, you have to, for one, when I came back the other times, I was dependent upon the people who hosted me. And so I don't really know where anything is at or how to get from one, places that I'm supposed to be at or at home. So good luck trying to use GPS. You can, but not every place has an address, so you're really dependent upon the connections that you've made in Uganda, and so you have to just kind of like, I guess for me it was like different, just seeing so many people on the street. I mean, even on a boda, which is like a motorcycle taxi, you might see 3 or 4 people on one boda, So it's just like, in order for me to survive, from one place to another, I had to be dependent upon the people who hosted me. And so, I found it interesting, walking down the street, you see stuff like that where you got markets, there's food all over the place. You know how we get the image of Africa starving and stuff? There's like food galore, and if you go to someone's house, they're going to fix you a plate of a nice plate too, So you're always going to be basically kind of taken care of, to a degree. And, as you stated, there's always somebody to talk to. You just walk down the street and you can go to a gas station, you can start talking to people,
Yeah, I mean, it's what it is. I mean, it's how poverty has been a big part of it, because I believe that maybe if we also like get to a point where we get rich and also get, like have all this infrastructure where the markets are going to be like, placed in a certain zone where residences are going to be placed in a certain zone where, like everything is going to be zoned in a particular place in an organized manner. I believe we'll all eventually get there. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen before Jesus comes back anyways. Africa is so slow at everything. Like, there's no way that is going to happen.
Well, like South Africa is kind of set up that way. More like, I would say South Africa is more like the United States in terms of its infrastructure, how it's set up. But people there are very friendly though. You still get the warm African hospitality, you know, and there is still more of a community kind of like sense of things. But you won't necessarily like, you know, you'll have your shopping zones, your industrial areas, you'll have that stuff partitioned off. So yeah, it can probably create somewhat of a different type of social dynamic, you know, but people are still very, you know, they still have that sense of like Ubuntu or, you know, kindness towards one another and respect for one another, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's Joburg right there. So that could be, that looks like Philadelphia or any city in the United States. You know, that could be Atlanta. You know,
yeah. I mean, I've never been to South Africa. Actually, you have traveled to most parts of Africa than I have. You have more African experiences than I actually do. And South Africa, the image we had about South Africa was like, okay, this is a modern part of Africa where actually if you can't end up in the United States somehow, end up in South Africa. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you have a lot of Africans from other parts of the country.
Because for economic reasons, we used to kind of leave our countries and try and go and find jobs in other countries, especially if you are living in a country where there's a dictatorship and it's actually like keeping its people in poverty as a deliberate intention to actually like shield himself from them. So that he's the only source of income, you know what I mean?
Right.
So South Africa was like, okay, the go-to place for most African people, because like, okay, if you can't go to United States or if you can't go to Europe, if you're not that lucky, at least find your way in South Africa, like cross these borders in any way you can and end up in South Africa, because somehow at least the minimum wage over there is not the same in the rest of Africa.
Yeah. I think wages are a little bit higher in South Africa. I think, you know, they have a minimum wage. I don't even know if Uganda even has a minimum wage. And then certain professions, you know, like if you're I know people who have degrees in Uganda and they make around $200 a month. You know, like that's a pretty decent. I guess that's a salary that people reach like $200 a month. And for that same job in South Africa, they would probably get paid definitely over $1,000 a month. You know, so it's a bit different as far as how I think a lot of that's rooted in politics, you know, and representation in government. And I think that's one of the big challenges in some places. Like Uganda, they've had the same president for the last since 1986, you know. So, you know, there's not, one of my prayers is that there would be more of a concern from leadership about actually doing the things necessary to build up Uganda, you know, and that's just one of my big prayers, you know, that I believe that more can be done, because Uganda has a lot of great things about it, you know, and I think there's still even good opportunities for people in Uganda if they're able to navigate through the system there.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you think about the politics, I mean, okay, I mean, we don't want to go into that, like, but what did you feel? Okay, you have this excitement. You've come to Africa,
right?
And then you've seen all this potential, because you've seen all these blessings from God. Like, you're like, okay, this is perfect, because look, this weather is the best. There's no weather. They can work 24/7 and they'll never have any weather interference. They can work around the clock and develop this country. and then they have this natural water, like the water in Uganda. Like when you went to Uganda, you saw all these freshwater lakes. You saw all this nice water, and people are still struggling with water. Like, but there is all this water, and the people are suffering with water. People are struggling. They don't have water, and then you see all this chunk of land that is undeveloped, and it is in prime areas, and you're like, okay, this would be a perfect place to put a 5-star hotel, or this would be a perfect place to build a big mega city like one in Dubai, and something like that. And you look at all these things. How did you feel? Like, did you actually like start to feel the politics, and how did you respond towards that? How did that make you feel? Did you feel comfortable? Did that make you feel like, okay, this is a place I can shine? This is a place I can come and be productive, or not?
Yeah, like, it's funny. When I came to Uganda, I was very green. All I knew about Uganda was Idi Amin. That's all I knew. So I realized I started learning about things that happened in the world, Civil War at some point in time. So I had to. I told myself when I got back to the States, I need to educate myself more about the places that I'm going to. I think on one hand, I felt so inspired, like I said, just seeing Black people on billboards, just seeing Black people in every sector of society, from being business owners and politicians. I felt that there is an opportunity there. There is a chance to do things. I didn't know quite exactly what it was. But going back multiple times, you begin to learn more. I think you have to go to Africa and visit several times to really understand what can be done. And I think a lot of times when you read some of the media from the West, they make it sound like it's so it's such a fragmented situation that it can never be fixed. But the more I look at things, I'm like, you know what? There are things that can really be done to help improve things, And sometimes I think what happens is like you don't realize. Like, I studied urban studies before I went to Bible college, so one of my thing that I was studying was about urban design and how to develop cities. So I think I didn't realize how much, not to try to make a place like America, but you say, wait a second. When you go to a place and you're seeing certain things, you're like, you know what? If they just did this, if A, B, or C could happen, this could help improve things here for people. This could help take it to another level. Like one thing that like I'll give you an example. An address system on houses. That's one of my things. Is like, man, they just need to put addresses. The government needs to do that. To help people move around, so you can easily find a place, so emergency services can get there faster. I was in a place called Kamuli. You're probably familiar with that.
Yeah,
Kamuli. Yeah. Kamuli has
oh wait, I'll cut you right there before you continue. That's why I want to leave. I want to kind of move there.
Yeah.
I don't want to be near the city. Like every time I'm thinking of, okay, where am I gonna live when I actually decide to build a house over there? I'm thinking like, okay, maybe it's Kamuli, a place further east.
Further east, yeah. And they have sugar cane. Sugar cane is a big industry up that way. And I mean, a nice thriving place, And I think one issue is that I remember there was a fire, and the closest fire brigade was in Jinja, which is like an hour away, So I'm like, by the time you come to put out the fire, the place is going to be destroyed. So when I was in South Africa, you know how we have ADT security. Okay, so in South Africa, ADT security is like I mean, it's not here. It's just an alarm system. There is like they have a police force basically, and then they also have ADT offers fire protection services where they'll come and put out a fire. So I was like, you know, if the government is not able to handle that in Kamuli, if somebody came along and created like their own privatized fire protection service, that could be a blessing to the people there. You know, so there's so many opportunities for, if you think outside of the box, ways to create employment, to create generational wealth, that could be a blessing in certain community. If you really think about different solutions and stuff like that, you know, and you know, of course, I believe all things are possible. I think it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge in Uganda, and you know, you got to learn how to work through a system that could be, it could be a challenge. I mean, like if you try to start a business or do anything anywhere, it's always going to be a challenge for that. But you know, you have to, number one, build the right team of people. You have to learn how to properly connect with the community. You got to find people that have a level of integrity that you can work with. You know, and then you got to know how to connect with some of the African big men. You know, you got to learn how to just, you know, learn how to work with those who have clout, and you know, in order to move things along. You know, and I think that's something that a person has to learn. Is like Africa, you build through community and connections and who you get to know. You can't just go on, boy, I have a degree, you know, I have this amount of years of experience. You got to know who to connect with and how to connect with them. And, you know, and then you can begin to build.
Right. So, my question though is, do you think that that's something that African leaders can see and actually can do? Because the Africans there feel like they're trapped. They're trapped in a situation which they cannot change, because the African leaders over there, they don't seem to see what you are talking about. These are things which are like no brainer. They're
right. They're obvious
because we are well-traveled people. Our presidents are not people who just show up from the rural village and just come up the ladder and then become presidents. These are people who are educated.
They're very educated.
They're very educated abroad. Some of them actually literally come from abroad.
Yeah, that's true.
To politics and then to the presidency.
Yeah,
you know, something like that. And I'm like, okay, why can't they see this? Is this something that you think they are doing on purpose? Like they are not going to develop their countries because it benefits them?
It benefits them.
Yes.
Yeah. I you know, that's what, you know, I told a young lady who is now in Holland, but she's a travel agent. I use her agency, a good friend of mine, and I told her, I said, listen, I ain't the first person to come up with these ideas. I'm sure in some of these board meetings and city planning meetings and on the various levels of government, people are addressing these things, you know. So I think what it is that you just have people who benefit, they're empowered, they don't want any real challenge to their authority, you know. So the best way to do that is to keep everyone else kind of beneath you and you on top, you know, unfortunately. And so I believe things can change, you know. Number one, there's always prayer, you know, God will vindicate, he'll bring justice on the earth. But then too, if people are able to somehow properly organize themselves to challenge their leadership, I think changes can happen. You know, like I know, like there's a gentleman who wants to become president, Bobby Wine. I personally think that Bobby, I understand he wants to become president. He wants to see the electoral process work where he could become president. But personally, I think Bobby, he's got in his political party people elected as members of parliament. He's in parliament as well. Start with small incremental things, you know, push to get transformative things done. Like, okay, we're going to get addresses. We're going to come up with an address system for residences, and we're going to get that done. You know, we're going to come up with a way to zone industries, commercial industries from residential areas, and then work on getting that done. Like, work on getting things done that can be done without you even having to become president. And then, you know, still organize people to, you know, rally behind letting their government know that we are people of value, and you have to structure this nation in such a way that it helps to bring out the best that is in us. You know what I mean? So people have to really be kind of dogmatic with that vision. When you talk about South Africa, for an example, Black people there were heavily oppressed under apartheid. You know what I mean? It was like a brutal regime, dictatorship, and people lost their lives, people were killed, you know, but they were dogmatic about what they wanted. They stuck together as far as what they wanted. In America, when you talk about civil rights, you know what I mean? The Black Civil Rights Movement, same thing. Leaders here were killed, people were assassinated, but people had come to a point where saying, look, enough is enough. They had to band together. They had to come up with a long-term strategy of, you know, getting things done, you know, pushing some things through the court system, using the Supreme Court, getting cases won, you know. And so, like in Uganda, one thing I tell people is that Uganda needs a strong surge of justice. There needs to be a sense of accountability, you know. So, you know, for leaders like Bobby Wine, work on dealing with stuff like workplace sexual harassment. You know, maybe fund a lawyer to represent a woman who's facing that on her job, and bring some accountability. Like, you start on those type of levels, and you get to you know, you start getting little wins in battles. You start winning those little victories, and get people to believe that you can get things to work in a just manner, and that can send shockwaves to those who are seated in the executive office to say, okay, the people here are serious. You know, they're serious about this. So I think there are definitely strategies and ways to go about it that can bring changes. Maybe I'm just optimistic. I know it's tough. I know it's hard. I know there's an unwillingness. But if people can get in there and hold people accountable and use the court system as one of their mechanisms, it can work. Things can change, I believe. Right. I think it's just getting people to believe that it can happen. And you know, and that has to be birthed in Uganda. I'm just throwing this out there, praying that somebody sparks something in somebody that's there, and they create this status around it. But you know, the change, the transformation, the big time transformation will take place by Ugandans, and it's not just about becoming a president, because I think the issues could be bigger than just a presidency. You have a lot of people who are involved in institutions of power, who unfortunately see the only benefit of it's kind of like a colonial system of taking and not giving. And so if you get some individuals who begin to say, okay, look, enough is enough. These are the things that we're going to work towards. These are the things that we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we get these little things done to show the people that it's possible, that it can happen.
Right.
That's just my take on it.
Yep. I mean, yeah, definitely there is a lot people can do. And that's the politics of Uganda, and that's the politics of Africa. It's basically the same.
Yeah, it's basically the same in a lot of places. Yeah, I mean, I know, like, I'll say this, like, Kenya. Okay, I noticed in Kenya that the internet ran faster in Kenya. Okay, I noticed that the streets were a little bit wider in Kenya.
Yeah.
So I noticed that there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more of an infrastructure development in Kenya. I noticed that as opposed to Uganda, and I know that Kenya has made some strides. It became listed as a lower middle income country a few years ago before they were considered just a low income country. So now they ranked up to a lower middle income country. And their goal is in the next several years to become a middle income country. So there are some things that they have done. And they have a long way to go. They know it. But there's some things that they have done to kind of allow that to happen in Kenya. And so Kenya is right next door to Uganda. So I don't think I believe Uganda could do the same thing. And then you got Rwanda that's in the area. Rwanda that's coming quite very far from the genocide that they experienced in the 90s. So
that's Kenya.
Yeah, that's Kenya. That's Nairobi, right?
Yeah, that's Nairobi.
Nairobi. I mean, don't sleep on Nairobi, man. You got really some areas that's really beautiful, like in Nairobi. I have friends that lived in Nairobi, and they would tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think back then Uganda was on top of this. Like back then when excuse me a little bit. Back then Uganda was more developed during Idi Amin's days. Uganda was on top of Kenya and even Malaysia right now. Actually, Uganda was far developed back then than it is right now. Like it has totally like gone backwards. Like this is crazy. Like Kenya, you see Kenya like right now, like it's far ahead of Uganda like 10 times. But Uganda has been like ravaged by politics that we don't even get into it. Like it's been on purpose. Like actually, we don't want to talk about how one guy has been in power for 36 years.
Right.
And he's still wanting to continue going.
Yeah.
He has nothing to show for it. You know what I mean?
So I know what you mean.
Yeah, that kind of thing is very, very painful. But Kenya, that's how politics comes in. Kenya has had a democracy.
Yeah.
And it is a functioning democracy. Uganda doesn't. Uganda doesn't have it. And so sometimes you can have a good dictator. And maybe one day we shall get into that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can have a good dictator who loves patriot.
I think Rwanda is like that. They have a good dictator. You know what I mean? It works for them. Like you stated, there's more of a transition of power in Kenya, and now I know one of my Kenyan friends, he's hard on the Kenyan government leaders, and he rightfully should be, but there is more of a democracy, there's more of an accountability to get certain things done, and so you just see a little bit more, you see a lot more development and investment in Kenya, especially in areas where they're attracting tourists or like resort areas. I mean, they really put a lot into it, and I don't think that Uganda, Kampala could look like this, I believe. I really do believe that. Kampala's right on the Great Lake. It's in the Great Lakes region. The weather is perfect. I mean, every day is like 75 degrees. Just beautiful.
Yeah. So that actually we're about to close the show. I mean, we are way an hour, and and it can go on and on until tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, finally, and this is a question I'm going to pose to you because this is where we are going to pick it up from on the next show, which we shall agree when the next show will come. You know, so it could come in the middle of the week. It could come anytime. But anyway, so I want to know, like, when you went there, did you actually like get a vision? Did you you know, there's you know, like there's something that actually can happen to someone when they step into a new place, where they feel like, okay, they feel like a vision, like God is calling them to do something. Like, is there something you feel like when you stepped on the African soil, in any part of the African soil, whether it's South Africa or Nairobi or whether it was in Kampala, did you feel like a calling? Did you feel like God is calling you to do something in particular?
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, I believe that, you know, he wants me to have impact on the continent. And then, like, the Lord, I remember in 2017, I was in Kampala. He gave me a vision as far as where in Africa I would live. I thought it was always going to be Uganda, but that's when he opened up some eyes to South Africa. But yeah, so I mean, I definitely do sense a kingdom vision to continue to teach the word, to continue to open up the eyes of our understanding to Scripture. There's a lot of Scripture that talks about Africa. And so sometimes I delve into that when I'm there. I think that we as Black people need to know that the Lord has always had us on his mind, you know. And yeah, there are things that I just desire to see, even in places like Uganda, you know, in terms of helping people to grow spiritually, as well as the walk in their gifts, their calling, you know. Yeah.
So you feel like, okay, that's what you feel like. You feel like, okay, the Lord has called you to be like a missionary. Like, did you find like Africans so religious? Is there any particular country that you found so religious than any other country, or is it just the same?
I think it's pretty much the same. I think Black people in general are kind of spiritual people, if you hear where I'm coming from. Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of, you know, a lot of people, you know, say they're born again or whatever else. I don't know how many people actually, just like here in America, how many people actually understand what it means to be committed to Christ. But yeah, a lot of people are religious, whether they are Muslim, whether they're Christian, whether they're Catholic, whether they're involved in traditional religion. You know, most people have some sort of an adherence to a faith. So that's pretty much common throughout Africa. You know, you talk about the Bible, people will listen, you know. So I definitely would say that. Yeah.
So yeah, well, it's been so nice having you on the show today.
Oh, thank you.
And there's a lot that we are yet to get into it, you know.
Oh yeah.
We're just barely scratching the surface of our introduction. Yeah, but we are going to be like talking about a lot of things. We are going to talk about the cultural differences between Black and Black, like the African American and the African, like. And we're here to talk about some of the Africans you found that are actually migrating to Africa and are already there. And so we would love to get into that, and would love to see if there's hope in Africa for an African American, because there are so many challenges here for African Americans, and I'm like, dang, you know, I don't know if the solution is Africa. You know, I don't know if the solution is Africa. I don't know if there's kind of a mutual solution for each other, because I feel like, okay, the politics that we have over there. At one time I was thinking and I was wondering, should we just come here and fetch all these African Americans and take them to Africa? And then these are the guys who are going to be like, okay, the Black Lives Matter. They're going to fight these presidents. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, okay, this aggression, this energy, we could use it in Africa. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because the African Americans are not going to take any crap. You know, like they're going to fight. And I'm like, okay, these, you know, the Africans are a little bit like submissive, extremely submissive, as you found out. So we shall get into that. So
yeah, we gotta get into that, definitely. Yeah.
It's been very nice having you on the show.
Same here. Thank you.
Those of you who have been like watching, this is the first episode of our Afro Alien media show, and this is going to be a specifically African channel where we actually share all our different experiences that we've had across the aisle. The people who are in America have a different experience, and they're Black like me, and I have a different experience, and I'm from Africa. So we want to share, and there's some other Africans I've met here who have come here and have an experience they want to talk about. So this is the channel that we are going to actually bring on such people, and they're going to be sharing their experiences with us. And there's certain African Americans as well. There's some guys who actually like told me they would love to see what's happening here. They would be interested in following what's going on this platform, and maybe they would also want to come up and share with us. So we will see what happens, but I have a ton of questions, and I don't see any other person.
Okay. Thank you. All right.